Early on in the investigation, there were certain items that were found that got a lot of news attention. I'm not going to say what it is because they haven't done anything with this, but there was one particular item, and I talked to somebody in the FBI who said, we believe that somebody in the media may have planted that item to get attention, and that if they can prove that and they believed it to be true, they would prosecute the individual. And that never happened.
On the night of January 31st, 2026, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her home in the Catalina foothills just outside Tucson, Arizona, after having dinner with family. It would be the last time anyone saw her. The next morning, she failed to show up for an online church service. A friend noticed and reached out to her children. When family arrived at the house around noon, what they found inside raised immediate alarm. Nancy's wallet, her car, her cell phone, her hearing aid, and her medication were all still there. For a woman with mobility issues and health conditions that require constant care, leaving without any of it made no sense.
News organization, by the way. I mean, it's like, you got Associated Press, you've got Reuters. I mean, they've been wrong about some things in the past, but for the most part, they're legit. They put out a report, according to sources, law enforcement sources, that the FBI had come to the conclusion that none of the notes were real, so that they were fake, which surprised me based on what I was hearing from my sources, because it was kind of the opposite.
Investigators soon found blood outside near the porch. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and later the FBI treated the case not as a disappearance, but as an abduction. Before we go further, if you're invested in this case the way we are, hit subscribe now to our True Crime Stories channel and like this video, because this investigation has more turns coming and you won't want to miss how it unfolds. Within days, a ransom note arrived at a local Tucson television station. It named a Bitcoin wallet and demanded payment for Nancy's safe return. A second note followed, this one far darker, suggesting she had already died shortly after being taken. Her daughter, Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, addressed the note publicly, telling the person responsible, "We understand," and begging for her mother to be brought home. Doorbell camera footage from the house showed a masked figure wearing gloves and carrying a backpack, approaching the property in the hours before Nancy vanished. The FBI released the images publicly, hoping someone would recognize him. No one has come forward with an identification. In the weeks that followed, investigators canvassed the neighborhood, reviewed surveillance footage from nearby gas stations, and stationed a deputy outside the home around the clock. The FBI moved its command post from Tucson to Phoenix to support a growing long-term investigation. Savannah Guthrie and her siblings pleaded publicly, again and again, for whoever was responsible to make contact. By late February, the family had offered a reward of $1 million for information leading to Nancy's recovery. They also donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a gesture toward other families living through the same nightmare. Every member of the Guthrie family and their spouses was formally cleared as a suspect. A pair of gloves recovered near the scene tested with no match in the national DNA database. Still no arrest. Still no answer. Nancy Guthrie has never been found.
But listen to what Mark said to me. This was Friday night, and I think it kind of explains it a little better. What do you mean by that?
Well, because one of the kind of working theories going on right now is the theory about the Bitcoin and the kidnapping for ransom.
If you want to follow this case as new evidence comes to light, make sure you're subscribed to 3 True Crime Stories and tap that like button so this investigation reaches the people who might actually know something. Because somewhere out there, someone does. As the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance stretched into its 5th month, a separate case connected to it was quietly working its way through federal court. Derek Calleja, a man from California, had been arrested after sending fake ransom demand text messages to 2 of Nancy's family members just days after the family posted a public video pleading for her return. According to the federal complaint filed against him, Calleja used a VoIP application to obtain a phone number separate from his own, then sent messages asking whether the family had sent Bitcoin payment. Investigators moved fast. Within a short window, they traced the number to an IP address, then to an email account, and ultimately to Calleja's residence in California. After being read his rights, he admitted to sending the messages. If you're following this case closely, now is the time to hit subscribe to 3 True Crime Stories, because the details buried in this federal complaint reveal things about the investigation we haven't heard anywhere else. What made the complaint notable wasn't just the arrest. It contained small details about the original case that hadn't surfaced in official documents before, including a reference to Nancy's hearing aid, found left behind in her home the morning she vanished. The complaint also made a point of stating that Calleja's text messages were not connected to the real ransom demands sent to the family. In other words, federal investigators drew a clear line between his hoax and whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie herself. Records also show that just minutes after sending his texts, Calleja called one of the family members directly, a call that lasted only 9 seconds. Ultimately, Calleja was not sentenced to jail. He received 5 months of probation, with reports indicating drug use played a role in his decision-making and his sentence. Meanwhile, questions swirled around the legitimacy of the earlier ransom notes, the ones sent directly to a Tucson television station in the days after Nancy disappeared. A report suggested the FBI had concluded the notes were fake, a claim that contradicted what investigators had said for months. Days later, the FBI issued an official statement affirming they were still treating the case as a kidnapping for ransom and that some notes remained under active investigation as potentially legitimate. Attorney Mark Garagos, who has said he maintains contacts within federal law enforcement, claimed publicly that the conflicting reports stemmed from an internal mistake during an attempt to trace a Bitcoin wallet linked to the notes. That claim has not been confirmed by the FBI itself. On the forensic side, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed publicly that DNA evidence from the scene had been sent to multiple specialized labs across the country, not only the FBI's own lab. He described overlapping DNA samples from multiple people needing to be separated and confirmed that genealogy testing was underway, a process that could eventually connect crime scene DNA to a suspect through relatives in genetic databases, even without a direct match on file. Despite the forensic effort, the reward money, and the national attention, no suspect has been named. No arrest has been made in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance itself. 5 months in, the case remains open, and the person responsible remains unidentified. If new evidence breaks in this case, and it will, you want to be the first to know. Subscribe to 3 True Crime Stories now and hit that like button so more people see this investigation and maybe, just maybe, someone who knows something finally comes forward.